So I am fresh off of let's start with the Phillies because we haven't gotten to them yet today. I'm fresh off a trip to Wrigleyville, and Wrigley, there's just no cooler experience in sports than like seeing that. I've been there before, but not for a Phillies game. Being there for a Phillies series was especially cool, and Wrigley's just the absolute
It's
coolest.
funny. Actually, Wrigley is one of the worst places to cover a game. And it's one of the worst visiting team clubhouses in all of Major League Baseball.
That's funny.
Famous.
Yes.
It was actually where Roy Halladay
he overheated
that one day. And we're all in. I'm telling you, the visitors clubhouse is not much bigger than this room. It's probably 15 by 15, 20 by 20, and you're all like packed in there. And Roy Halladay's overheating. He's in like a broom closet somewhere, probably
trying to cool down.
Compounding matters. So yeah, but it's a great park outside of that.
It really is. And Dave, the Phillies have kind of done perfect during this little downstretch here of injuries. We'll get into the trade rumors in a second, but like I kind of said, as soon as Schwarber and Harper went down, just play 500 ball through this, and that's aces.
Yeah, I mean, to go 5-4 without them right now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you could ask for, and I think you're seeing the value of good pitching.
Absolutely.
We've talked about it every year for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Your lineup's going to go through ups and downs. You're going to get injuries. You're going to have the Cody Clemens and David Dawes of the world in there, and the best way to do it is keep that opposing team under 4 or 5 runs, and you're going to score enough runs at some point to at least eke it out.
Yeah. So Ranger Suarez, last 3 starts have not been the Ranger we got accustomed to the first 9 or 10 starts of the season. Pitchers go through this sometimes where they just get a little bit of a dead arm, especially when they're trending towards the most innings pitched they've ever done. I believe his career high was 155. So he's going to eclipse that. Do you chalk up Rangers' recent struggles to just that, kind of a dead arm, middle of the season type of thing? Or do you think there's something more to keep an eye on there?
Well, I mean, I think if you look back through Rangers' history, this is kind of the way his seasons go. Yeah, I mean, the good thing for him is he's healthy right now, and I think that's as long as that remains the case, he's going to pull out of it. It's you saw it last year where he started out kind of gangbusters, and we were all talking about whether he would start game 2 or game 3, and especially as Nola was struggling, and I think he's just kind of going through that. Look, the weather's heating up. We were in a very kind of unprecedented run environment early in the season, and I think that's starting to lift a little bit. So the ball's starting to carry a little more, but. Look, man, it's tough to pitch, and I think except for Roy Halladay, and the Scherzers of the world and the Kershaws of the world, kind of those, just that next tier of pitchers. Every pitcher is going to go through, a 5 or 6 or 7 start stretch like this. I mean, George, I only know George Kirby because he's on my fantasy team, and his first, we forget how, especially with how consistent Wheeler has been, we forget kind of how the baseline for starters. And,
sure.
And it's not, you're not going to go out there. You're not going to go out there and go 7 innings and 2 runs every time out. And I think right now we're just, Rangers, just the odds are catching up to them. The heat's catching up to them. I think, look, was he a 1.75 ERA pitcher?
Few guys
was
are.
he really a Cy Young candidate? Probably not. But look, he's going to be as good of a number 3 as you could hope for in today's game.
Absolutely. And it is, a war of attrition, especially when it comes to pitchers. Now, look, Jim Bowden is a guy that's a former GM in this league, very well connected. He went on Sirius XM, I believe it was Saturday, maybe Friday. Don't hold me to that. But he said what he's hearing about Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies. And Dave Dombrowski does have a knack throughout his career of going for that big splash play. We haven't really seen it here yet because I think part of that is this team good enough? Like there was always that uncertainty because like you mentioned Nola last year, if he was struggling, luckily he caught fire late August, early September and kind of changed that. But now for sure that this is a World Series contending team. Jim Bowden named 3 names that he's heard in talking to people around Major League Baseball. Those names, for me, it's easy. I'm curious where you fall on it. The names he mentioned are Luis Robert, Jazz Chisholm, and Cody Bellinger.
Okay.
The impression he got in talking to executives around the league is that the Phillies really want to fix the center field specific position. What are your thoughts on those three guys? I'm a big push all in for Robert guy. I'm aware of the injury history and all of that. Jazz Chisholm is better than what you have, moves the needle slightly. And Cody Bellinger, just signed that 3-year, $80 million deal. He's fine. Again, better than what you have. What are your thoughts on those three names that are kind of floating out there?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are if those are your three names, I would much rather pour all my resources into the bullpen.
Interesting. All right.
Kind of, if you gave me the choice between Luis Robert and two kind of elite strikeout arms, I would take the latter every day of the week. And I'll say that for a couple of reasons. The one is the injury history.
Sure.
And kind of the price tag that is going to.
He's the most expensive of those three.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a reason why. Look, the White Sox are at a point where they don't have to trade him. He's got several years left, I believe.
Yeah, three at least, I think, with an option.
And a very team-friendly deal.
Yeah.
I think he's only got like $50 million guaranteed on the contract, which is an absolute steal.
And he's 27, so he fits that kind of core.
And look, so you need to look at it. It would be, the calculus would be different if you were trying to, if your number one concern was the regular season.
Sure.
At that point, an everyday player kind of makes a ton of sense. But right now, I mean, you got to think about this. You got to think about the trade deadline within the context of a playoff series, right?
Absolutely.
And no matter who you get, you're not guaranteeing yourself a chance at anything because it's baseball, and you're going to have 60 plate appearances. And I mean, Brandon Marsh is just as liable to have a great 60 plate appearances as Luis Robert. It's just a matter, it's the variance is so big. And pitching is the one thing where you can count on that, and I think that more than anything is the way they should be looking at it. To give Thompson another option in that bullpen and kind of fortify yourself. I mean, God forbid, Alvarado or Hoffman or one of these guys gets hurt. Look, you can't have a ton of confidence in the guys beyond those four. The Sotos, the Dominguez's. You would love to have, especially if it's like a true closer type arm that could let the rest of those guys slot in there. I mean, that's where my head's at. And if Robert was a different player than he is, then whatever. But he really kind of fits the mold that this team is already in. I mean, he's a
high
big
strikeout
power guy,
rate,
big strikeout guy, and
I think he's like 24% strikeout rate.
And that's my whole point with the postseason is like you want to, like
if you don't have Kimbrel last year, to your point,
you don't necessarily want more of what you have. Now, it's great, but like when you just have a bunch of big boppers that crush fastballs and are kind of susceptible to swing and miss stuff. You get what you had last year in the Diamondbacks, where you win the run differential for the series by, however many, but you still lose the series because it's feast or famine. So I think that, long story short, Robert would be a guy, of that three for sure, because he's the best defensive center fielder. The other two, I mean, at least a couple weeks ago when I looked at the metrics, the metrics say Brandon Marsh is just as good of a defensive center fielder as Jazz Chisholm or Cody Bellinger.
Sure.
And I'm not sure either one of those two players moves the needle offensively enough to really warrant, the price tag that would come attached with them.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Bowden did mention Aiden Miller's name, which I think is absolutely crazy. I think he should be an untouchable.
In terms of trade, I would never trade that guy.
Yeah, like Andrew Painter and Aiden Miller to me are just your two untouchable guys. The rest are negotiable.
I think especially if
Crawford's killing it this year.
Center field. I mean, the first thing they have to ask themselves, and I think everything that they've kind of signaled to us is they don't view Marsh as a long-term option in center field, which fine, that makes a ton of sense. So then if you're going for a guy like Luis Robert, who is going to be a multiple year answer,
sure.
I think Justin Crawford would obviously be the guy on the table.
Absolutely.
But Aiden Miller, I would not touch.
This kid seems special.
It would not stun me to see him in the majors, end of next year. I mean, at the rate he's going.
Yeah, I mean, you had a scout say he's the best prospect they've had since Mike Schmidt.
Yep,
and those types of things are not thrown around willy-nilly.
No, and I saw him in spring training, and ignore the fact that he's probably 20 by now. I think he was an old 19 at the start of the season, but I mean, the guy looks like the guy's a full grown man right now.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I'm not.
He is 20 now.
I'm not predicting that he's going to actually be at anywhere in the infield at any point next season. But it wouldn't stun me. I mean, he's that good of a prospect. He's that mature of a player, and he's that physically developed. Which
We all silly like the mayor.